Do you feel that in this day and age that being Muslim is somewhat trendy as an active entrepreneur? Like, how do you stay so strong with your faith? I mean, right now you're saying you're at the end piece of Ramadan, and not only are you, and we'll get into it, like active dad, but like you still have a business to run. You have multiple things to do as an entrepreneur. How is that balance? How important it is to keep those values and beliefs in what you're doing? Because I feel that that doesn't get talked about as much in entrepreneurship, where there's faith and entrepreneurship connected, is not two separate things.
Yeah. It has to come first. I think the challenges that I've learned, or the lessons that I've learned throughout my business career of going on 10 years now, is most business people will try to put business as the primary thing that they do in their life, because as an entrepreneur, you dedicate so much time, and so much time is needed or necessary for you to succeed in the space. I have to admit. But at some point, you start to see that everything falls out of whack. And that's why people have different beliefs around work-life balance. And some people call it life-work balance. They put life first. And there's a lot of different philosophies. Some people will tell you, hey, balance doesn't exist. It's just a rhythm and different seasons. And you just have to find what works for you. The thing that I find that works for me is that faith has to come first.
Right.
And so I remember the first adjustment that I made was in 2018 or so. I said, no business Fridays. And some people used to do the 4-day work week, because on Friday, it's the summer. So it's like, oh yeah, well, you don't work on Fridays because of the summer. But for me, no work Fridays was specifically because we go to the mosque on Fridays. And so I realized that if I kept myself open for any work on Fridays, or at least the first half of the day on Friday, I can run late to the mosque. I can miss the mosque altogether. Things will come up and I'll be, oh man, I can't do it. I got to wait till next week. And then next week, like the minute you miss something, quite honestly, you could miss it once and not realize that you missed it for an entire 6 weeks because of that one time that you missed. And so when I made that first adjustment and just said, no business Fridays, it was the first time that I showed the creator that, hey, you come first in my life, so much so that I'll put the business secondary to what has to be done on this day. And so ever since then, I used to not work at all the entire morning up until about 1:30, 2 o'clock on a Friday, and maybe just work a couple hours in the afternoon, and that was it, because I wanted to make sure nothing distracted me. When I built enough discipline, now I can do things in the morning on a Friday. But I know from 11 till about 1:30, 2 o'clock, there's nothing that could interfere with me getting to the mosque, because that is the primary thing that I have to do. When I go there, I'm getting recharged. I'm getting more clear about the importance of what I'm doing. I'm getting more educated about how to navigate and balance life, faith, and business, because they all are 3 different pillars that are necessary. And so that's what I realized, is you have to schedule your business around your faith, not your faith around your business. The minute I did that, and again, my faith is a little bit more demanding than most, because you have to pray 5 times a day, every day, not just once a week. Like every single day you have to pray 5 times a day. You have to fast for 30 days, once a year, no exceptions. There's a certain cleansing routine that you have to go through before you pray. There's so many things that you can look at as inconveniences, but it breeds that structure and that routine and the discipline necessary, that if you channel it with that, because it's really a part of who you are and what you believe, you start to see that it powers what you're doing in business, it doesn't take away from it.
So I actually have a kind of, I wouldn't say controversial question, but
Hit 'em
want
with
your
the
take on it.
controversial. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are you as he sips his drink? How are you feeling about how do I say this? Do you feel that in this day and age that being Muslim is somewhat trendy.
It is. I hate to say it. It is.
Hmm.
It definitely is. There was a time, man, I'm telling you, there was nobody celebrating Ramadan. We never got days off from school for our holidays. It wasn't on the calendar. Like right now, you can open up your phone on like your Apple calendar or Google calendar, and it'll say first day of Ramadan. It's like,
Right.
what?
Right.
Growing up, there was nowhere in sight. They were not celebrating nothing Muslim at all. There was no appreciation for it. Like I said, the only thing that I saw were people who were Muslim in movies being the bad guys. They were the terrorists. They were the ones that the U.S. Army was going and being super heroic. And that's just the only thing you saw. So yeah, right now it is super trendy. And I think I'm proud of it though, because it finally, like for example, I remember 3 or 4 years ago when Apple put the emojis out of the prayer hands facing upward. Like that's how Muslims pray. They don't really, put their hands together. They kind of pray with their hands like this. And then also they started to show people with the hijab, like the female with the hijab. And I was like, yo, even Apple is getting diverse. Like all of those moments were really cool to see come together, because I think that's a big reason why everyone says representation matters. You start to feel that there are examples of people who look like you that are being showcased in mainstream. So to see commercials, and I remember seeing my first Amazon commercial of a priest and a Muslim leader. They call him an imam, but they did a commercial together about like this knee brace, and Amazon powered the whole thing. And I'm thinking to myself, this is crazy. We live in a completely new era where they're showcasing this stuff on Front Street. Nike, when they did the hijab for, man, I forget the young lady's first name, but I think her last name was Muhammad. She was a U.S. Olympian fencing champion, and they made a hijab for her because there was some controversy about her, covering her hair or whatnot. So I know it's super trendy right now, but I do have to think back over the last 3 or 4 years and see all of these moments come together to put us in position for where we are now, where it is more regularly talked about and celebrated, just because people are now educated on the true essence of what it is to be of the Muslim faith. Like that I can't even be mad at it. Like, yeah, it's trendy, but honestly, I'm just happy people know the truth, or they have a better understanding. They may not be fully educated, but they have a better understanding of what our people are about. That brings me joy. So I'm gonna have to ride this wave. I know I'm not I try not to be a bandwagon fan, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna have to ride this one because it's super cool to see.